ChaChing needs some love, man. With all this stuff going on with our SEMA build, the EV truck, the DeLorean, ChaChing has been sitting on the sidelines. If you saw the episode, we went out to Kentucky. Andrew had a nice 1-minute burnout in the truck, and I'm pretty sure it fried the Watts link. Since then, the air ride has not been acting right. It's never been good. It's kind of always been an issue. But our buddy Mikey at Airlift sent us out a full airlift system for the truck. We're gonna take that Accuair system out and put the airlift in. We have some work to do on the Watts link too. We're gonna get the truck into the clean room and we'll go over and show you exactly what we have to do to get this airlift system in. We're gonna be taking this Accuair system out, which I'm kind of happy about because this box in here has become a complete disaster. When I first did this 2 years ago, everything was really clean and tidy. I was really proud of it. And through the years of just going through the system and trying to figure out why it wasn't working here and there, it's become a rat's nest. I'm gonna get all that ripped out and we're gonna put this unit in. You've got your manifold, your ECU all in one.
First thing I'm going to do with getting all the electrical sorted is getting all the hard components mounted so I know where all my wires are going to go. In our case, the batteries and the bed, the pumps are right next to it, and then the control box is right here. So everything's within like 3.5 feet, and so we're going to be chopping a lot of this off. The ECU and the solenoid pack is all tied into one. So this is really the only piece. Like a lot of the others, they'll have the solenoid pack and the ECU, and they'll be 2 separate units. This is a little grounding block. I'm just gonna move this because it's obviously right in the way of all the hose connections. So while I'm getting all the wiring done on the bench, Khalil's gonna start working on getting the air lines hooked up to the unit. I have to add one more relay because we have 2 compressors and this is set up for only 1. All right, so Khalil's starting to get all this plumbing done. All the main leads for the bags are completed. We have our 1 line for our exhaust, so when it wants to bleed off pressure. And we have 2 hoses here. Those are outlets from the tank that it's gonna go into the unit. We have a small dryer, and then we'll feed it into the manifold. The reason for that is so we don't add any moisture into the unit and cause any kind of corrosion on the solenoid so it doesn't seal properly. Here's a little dryer. We're not gonna make any kind of crazy bracketry. We're just gonna use rubber line P-clamp. We'll have our 2 fittings on the end.
So unfortunately, the old controller from the E-level setup that was tucked away nicely in this little ashtray, the new controller does not fit by about this much. So for the now, I'm just gonna drill a hole in the tranny tunnel. I'm just gonna put it right here next to me on the seat, old school style.
So we got all the wiring finalized. I got my 2 grounds mounted to the body underneath here for the compressors, as well as the ground for the control unit. We can go ahead and give it a little test and see how it works. So I'm gonna turn the main power on and then hit the key. Oh, there we go. All right, calibrate. Oh, I hear the pump coming on. It's got 31 PSI in the tank right now. I don't hear any leaks out here. Everything seems to be nice and tight. All right, everything seems to be working. That's awesome. It's building pressure.
All right, guys, it's Watts link time. What's that you say? Anyway, in efforts to make ChaChing the baddest air ride truck ever, now we have to address the Watts link. Now, a Watts link is what replaces your panhard bar, which goes from the chassis to a point on your axle. Now, normally that would stop this rear end from sliding back and forth. See this? So the Watts link is an actual linkage that's in the center of the pumpkin. This is the Watts link that was in ChaChing, keeping all 750 horsepower on the road. The Watts link is perfect for an air ride application because it does not shift the rear end over when you go up or down. If you had a pitman arm that's a fixed length, if you go to lower the vehicle, the rear end will shift over and it will actually force it one way or the other. It won't stay dead center. A Watts link will allow the rear end of the car to stay completely center and just go up and down. This thing obviously is not gonna work. We tried putting a bearing in it. It's been bent just a couple times and it's just a piece of junk. So, called up our buddy JC Customs, and he made a real Watts link for us. This is a solid billet. It's got fixed bearings in the center, so we don't have any issues there. and it's also branded. So if you can imagine, it's gonna go under the truck like this. It's gonna get mounted to the pumpkin. It's gonna go right here. And we have this chrome moly tube that we're gonna cut to length. It's gonna go like this. And then these are ends that will actually get welded onto the end of our tubing. So once you get this to slide in, there we go. You can see it's got a nice little bevel, a little chamfer for you to fill. Makes a really nice weld. What we need to do is figure out where the rear end is situated inside of the back of the truck when it's aired out. Since that's where it's gonna live most of its life, we want to set up the Watts link somewhere in the middle, and that's where the chassis table comes in. All right guys, so we got the truck up on the chassis table. It's important that you get the ride height where you want it as far as where the vehicle will be actually traveling down the road. And with an air ride system, obviously you have a lot of articulation. So we're gonna climb under here now and try to get a good base mark as to where everything is gonna be. What you want is your lower link and your upper link over here to be level. I'm gonna use a nice billet straight edge with a bubble level like this. I'm gonna be able to set my height. Once I have my height and my center line, that's when I'm gonna start cutting on the plasma table, these brackets. I know exactly where to put our center point to be able to bolt our billet Watts link onto. All right, we have our pieces cut for our bracing, and what we're gonna use is this contour tool. It's got a bunch of needles on it, and it's got a locking mechanism on the end. And as you can see, it'll just give you whatever contour you want. You just trace it over. So this is gonna be perfect for going around the radius of the pumpkin, since it has a lot of really, really smooth, rounded contours. Come on, baby. It's locked till. There you go. So I'm gonna go ahead and lock it in place there. We take it back over the bench, trace this out, cut it, and then you got a perfect radius. All right, so we got our last piece of the puzzle for our Watts link here to weld to the back of the diff. All we did was take a grade 8 bolt, cut the head off to make a shaft for this thing to pivot on. Now we have to weld this rear washer as like a standoff. The two braces that are going across the back side of the diff are gonna tie into this guy. That's gonna give us our added strength to be able to spread the load on our Watts link. We have our Watts link tacked in place, but what I noticed is that there's some marks on the top bar over there. Looks like the old Watts link was hitting the actual cross member, so Andrew's gonna air the truck out right now. Oh wow. That's all aired out? Yeah, the Watts link was hitting the cross member, and that's what broke it and snapped it off.
Oh yeah, it was always whacking that, yeah.
But we're clear right now. But with the heim joint's definitely gonna hit.
Yeah, the heim joint sticks out a lot from there.
Yeah, I gotta drop it down like a full inch. I'm gonna drop it down like the center of the pumpkin. All right, so now that we have our placement where we want it on the Watts link, I'm gonna go ahead and get it off the chassis table because it's just gonna be really a bear to weld this thing up in there, all tightened up. I'll drag the TIG welder over, do a final weld on the Watts link bracket, and then we'll mock it back up, make our measurements for our end links, and then this thing should be ready to go down the road.
What'd you say? Not again, Tim.
So our Watts link is installed. We have our cross braces all welded up. This obviously just needs a little paint, but the bearing is working out really well. So our end links are all cut and ready to be welded. And one side is going to spin to the right, the other one's spinning to the left, a reverse thread. Now allows you to grab it from the center and be able to adjust the actual length of this end link So we're gonna go ahead and weld these up now and then put them inside the truck and see how everything lines up. We went ahead and we tightened up all our Heim joints. Everything's all welded in. Obviously it still needs a little paint job, but we ended up reusing our original bracket up here. I was going to relocate it, but made it work. Has a little bit of an angle to it. It's not gonna really hurt anything, but the lower one is pretty much perfect. All we did was just put some washers in here. I'm really liking the way this thing came out. The S2S logo on the billet piece that JC made really ties the whole thing together. So the only thing left to do is we gotta put some fluid in the rear end, put it back on the ground, and see how this thing drives.
Finally got ChaChing sorted out. Accuair is out. That obviously is a huge improvement. The Accuair really never worked great from day one. It got to the point where the truck wouldn't go up and down. We had issues with the bags filling up while the truck sat. We blew 4 bags. The Watslink should hold everything together real nice back there so we could do burnouts and just kind of use the truck to a little bit more of its abilities. We still have to program this controller. So it tells you, you know, what air pressure your bags are at. You could get it to sit pretty level. To go up and down, you just kind of manually hold these buttons. So that drops the front, that drops the rear. Now we're pretty much sitting on the floor, as you can see. Oh yeah, she's a low one. Only thing left to do is a test drive, man. See if that Watslink is holding up. Also, like, it would shift over towards the passenger side. The wheel would rub on the outer fender. So now, hopefully, that won't happen. All right, well, I'd say that's a wrap. We got the air ride system working flawlessly. No more back feeding the bags, blowing bags, drop in, going all over the place. The Watslink is awesome, man. JC killed it. Finally, the rear end kind of stays where you want it. When you go up and down, the rear end doesn't track all over the place, so that's a big plus. Yeah, man, I'd say she's looking good and she's ready. January 8th, we're gonna be headed out to PBIR for Clean Cultures Car Show. They have some events set up out there for us. We're gonna be hitting the burnout pit with this thing. Obviously, we're gonna have to eat up this rubber on these puppies. We might even take it on the quarter mile. I think it's worth a shot. What do you think, Andrew? You got the cojones for that, man?
You're the one who got the new helmet and the new gloves.
You're right. Big shout out to Simpson. I'll have the helmet out there. I don't know, man. I'll take it down the quarter mile. I don't know if I'll give it all its juice and berries, but we'll go down the track a couple times and have some fun. Anyways, big shout out to Airlift Company for hooking us up with that system. JC always coming through for us. That's it. That's a wrap. Peace.
I know, but when it moves back and forth like this, what's that called? Can you tell we know what we're talking about? What did you say?